All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thank you for your patience. Time is now 7:17. As we call the meeting to order, we'd just like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish people, and specifically we recognize the Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Songhees and Kasapsum nations, and just that their historic connections to these lands and adjoining waters continues to this day. Up first, we have approval of the agenda. It's a regularly scheduled council meeting for November 24th. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed? We have adoption of minutes from, we have several from 3.1 to 3.7. I just move them all as a block, and if people wish to make changes, we can. Moved and seconded. Thank you. Are there any corrections, amendments, or changes to those minutes? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed? My remarks tonight are brief. I did just want to thank the vendors, the business community in Estevan Village. They're trying out new things to build some community vibrancy down there. They had a Christmas stroll last week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, where they had open houses and invited people in. So I believe it's a sort of an annual tradition. So if you missed it, the stores are still there, but encourage you to take part in those. We have BC Association of Police Boards. Sorry, that was a couple of things I just did this last week. There's some work continuing at the BC Association of Police Boards, where I sit on the executive. There's a lot of work with the province to try and work on standardization and support for police boards across the province. And I also had the joy of sitting in at a living library event today at Lansdowne Middle School. And just for those who aren't familiar, this is something that started at the GVPL when I was board chair there years ago, where basically you can check out a person and the people get a chance to talk. So they had a number of people with different walks of life, and the kids got to go around and talk to them all, and it was a great event. Last and certainly not least, of course, this Sunday is the Christmas light up on the avenue, so please come down and participate in the great festivities that happen on Oak Bay Avenue. That is Sunday, November 30th. Our next order of business is public comment and question period. This is an opportunity for people from the community, if they wish to speak either online or in person, on matters that are not on the agenda, but may be of general interest to the community. We can't take conversations about land use items because those all have specialized places, but other aspects of points of interest are always welcome. So is there anybody here from the public who wishes to speak to council on any matters? So this is not matters that are on the agenda, but are just of general interest to the community. Seems like an intimidating ask if you haven't been here before, but it's not. So we have everything from people talking to us about deer or potholes or everything in between. But if there's anything here, I don't see anybody online. I'm just going to double check with staff. I don't see any hands raised. It's not unusual we don't have people come forward at this, but I just thought I'd make sure everybody had the chance. Okay, so with that, we will come back and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is section 6. These are reports and memorandums not subject to public input. First order of business is 6.1, the Uplands sewer separation, Watermain replacement Humber project update and change order. We believe we have Mr. Rennick here to provide this update. Welcome, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. The purpose of this report is to give council and the community a brief update on the status of the Humber project, as well as to seek council approval for one change order to the prime consultant's contract. Just to briefly summarize where we are on the project, the province directed that the district complete the separation of combined sewers in the Humber catchment by December 31st of this year. That deadline has been met. All of the storm sewers that were required have been installed, and all of the catch basins are connected to the new storm sewers. The new water mains and water services have been installed. Essentially, all of the deep underground work is now complete. The remaining work is the installation of streetlights, restoration of curbs and sidewalks, paving, and landscape restoration, which will continue into early next year. The project has generally gone as expected. Of course, it's construction, and it's an old part of Oak Bay where significant work of this scale has not been done for some time. That is the reason why we are seeking an additional change order to the McElhaney contract. It primarily relates to additional archaeological consulting time, associated with encountering previously unknown archaeologically significant areas. And finally, to provide council with a budget update, because the initial project budget contained contingency for unknown conditions, we are not seeking any additional approval of funds in order to be able to approve this change order. So it is staff's estimate that the cost to complete the contract will come within the project budget with that contingency amount. And I'm happy to take any questions from council at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you to Director Rennick. Thank you so much for the report, and certainly I appreciate the complexity and duration of the work that's gone on. I've certainly seen the trucks there every single morning pulling out and doing the work, so I appreciate that. The report does reference revisions caused by unknown utilities, not identified prior to the project taking place. Could you I'm just wondering if staff could clarify if those are district or external utility sources, and if that has in fact caused us to change any of the records management process we go through. Thank you.
Mr. Rennick?
Thank you. Through the mayor, for the most part, the unknown utilities are indeed district utilities. The district's record keeping was not always the best. And to the further question of has this suggested any changes to our process, there's always a balance that you want to strike going into a project between how much time do you want to spend exploring to know where everything is, but that adds significant cost. And so we feel that the approach that was taken to really only verify those critical utilities and then to carry a modest contingency into construction is fairly standard practice, and it is a practice that we will continue on future projects.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks, Mayor, and through you. Just congratulations to the staff on achieving the province's mandate. I've sat around this table for many, many years, 3 mayors, and we've been working on it since then, and so I'm very happy to see that, that it's happened. It's a major milestone, so thank you for that. I would like to just touch on the we've had a little bit of an overrun on some of the costs on this, and I'm just wondering what improvements to future project scoping or risk assessments are perhaps planned so that we can maybe avoid similar overruns in the future.
Sure. Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, that is one aspect of this project that we are working on lessons learned from. When I referenced the previous question about how much contingency do you carry for unknown utilities, one thing that we have learned from this project is in areas of what the archaeologists refer to as high archaeological potential, we are looking at carrying additional contingency for those types of projects directly based on the lessons that we learned on this project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. My next question would be that given the remaining disputes in the Windley contract, can you confirm that approving the change order that we're looking at doing doesn't compromise our negotiating position with them?
Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, I can confirm that this does not have an impact on our ongoing negotiations with Windley.
Anything else?
Thank you, and my last question through you, Mayor. Can staff clarify the expected finish date for all the components, so the street lights, the paving, and the landscaping, if you know that?
Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, we're currently saying Q1 of 2026, and there's a couple of moving pieces that prevent us from being able to lock down a more specific estimate than that.
You don't see other questions here, so I'm going to I have one question, Mr. Rennick, if you can. These archaeological costs are in many ways driven by the Heritage Act, by the province, and there's considering future changes. Do we have any sense, is there any mechanism currently to charge back any of these costs to the province for archaeological pieces? If that's a question you don't want to answer here, that's fine, or if you don't know.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. I don't have an answer to it.
Okay, yeah. I know that this has been a topic of conversation broadly across the provinces. These are things being driven by the provincial policy, and the costs are falling squarely on municipalities and homeowners. Okay, we have a recommendation here for the change orders. I'll turn to the council and seek direction from a motion.
The recommendation.
Moved and seconded. This is to approve the change order CO19. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. We now move to, sorry, just making a note of my times. Bylaws and permits, section 7. 7.1 is 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw amendment bylaw. Ms. LaChance, welcome. Someone may need to get her a microphone.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening. This is the fourth and final approval of that bylaw, so I wasn't planning on doing any intro comments, but
I apologize, you're right, this is just an
yes,
adoption.
I apologize, yeah. But
That's
here
why
to
I didn't
answer
have a
any
microphone.
questions.
No,
Yeah.
we're good. We don't usually debate on adoption, but certainly if there's any questions, we can take any. We've already had first, second, and third reading of this bylaws and questions. All
I'll
right.
move that the 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw number 4899-2025 amendment bylaw number 4936-2025 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. We then move to section 7.2. Again, this is not subject for public input. Our official community plan update to CPP 75. This is for second reading. Mr. Brown, are you doing this, or am I giving this to Mr. Bull? Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me see here. This report deals with the bylaw for the updated official community plan, and following last week's first reading and several council requests for some final changes, today's bylaw is ready for consideration of second reading. And for your convenience, we also included a track changes version, just outlining those changes since last week. Next steps in the process would be scheduling a public hearing and also referral to the Capital Regional District for the regional contact statement. And we haven't talked a lot about that, but that statement is a required part of the official community plan, and it describes the relation of the local plan with the regional growth strategy. And acceptance of the CRD board is required before the bylaw can be adopted. So staff have confirmed with CRD staff that the board could consider this statement early or mid-December, aligned with the timelines that we have tentatively planned for the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bull. So as noted, we're looking for a reading of a second as amended, but I'll certainly turn to council if there's any questions at this time before we start advancing through procedural pieces. Councillor Braithwaite?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Do you want the recommendation for the addendum done first and then second reading? Or
No,
be done together?
So my understanding of the procedure here is we would move the official community plan be read a second time as amended. We did the amendments at the last meeting, but before you read that, I'm just going to turn, is there any questions from members of council before we start getting into the procedural pieces? No. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
I'll move that the official community plan bylaw number 4942-2025 be read a second time as amended.
And seconded, thank you. That's in front of us now. So there's a couple of things I would, contemplate here as council. Procedurally, normally, the standard process is we debate at second reading, and then we will go to, if this passes, it would go to public hearing, and then we will come back and have a debate after having heard public input. I leave it to members of the table here if we wish to talk to this matter. We've obviously had three walkthroughs of this to this point, but if people feel they wish to speak to him, I'm totally amenable to that. I would just ask, I'm going to limit that to the 5 minutes in the procedure bylaw, so we don't spend hours on this tonight, but if that's the will of council, we can do that, or if people are comfortable, we've had a fairly robust discussion to date, have it go to public hearing and then come back to this table. That would be another, and have the debate more robustly after the public hearing. So I will leave it to that. Right now, the motion is on the floor for be read as amended in front of us, and I think we just, for the people watching, this has been a split vote to this point, so it may or may not get unanimous agreement to go forward to for public hearing. Members of the council, does anybody wish to speak to this at second reading? I saw Councillor Watson and then Councillor Smart. And then Appleton.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that a lot of work and time has gone into this by staff, consultants, and the community, and also this council. And I appreciate that many people have participated to get us to where we are today. And I think there's many aspects of this package at second reading that are really strong and good. We've come a long way. But, I'm going to make this very short because we're going to be discussing this and having final debate after public hearing. But I am unable to support this plan at second reading and take it forward. I think that although it succeeds in many ways, we've got some great new land use designations. We've updated some policies that needed updating. Those are real strengths. We've got new development permit controls that will really help manage built form in our community. But Oak Bay has been stagnant in terms of its population for decades, and the plan that's in front of us now and is very likely to go forward to public hearing does not address that in any meaningful way. And our land use framework, I think, falls very far short of what the community actually asked for, which was not growth in our neighborhoods, but growth along main arterials and in our villages. And we have not accommodated that in what is in the plan. So if the land use framework map was different than the way it is tonight in this package, I think I would be quite happy to take it forward, but or support it in the vote, but at this point I cannot. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I have Councillor Smart and Appleton on my speaking list.
Yeah, thank you. Echoing, I think it's phenomenal the work that staff, consultants, and the community have contributed towards this refresh document. The enhanced policy work that is in here will support greater attention to our climate goals, environmental protection, and our housing needs. I do not, however, see the OCP map following the OCP's vision statement, which states a perspective of adapting to embrace the future. I am concerned about the housing uptake projections that are not yet projected to meet our 20-year housing needs and that are based on a pre-zoning assumption that we have yet to determine at this table. The OCP map designations are not likely to encourage housing outcomes that reflect the community's desire that we heard at public engagement to focus our density in our urban village centres. A desire to increase housing options and affordability across Oak Bay, specifically for youth, families, students, and seniors, was a key metric for this OCP's success, and the decision made on November 3rd to drastically reduce the vision for this OCP map in light of it's not visionary. It is working from a fear of change. OCPs are specifically designed with a 20-year vision to overcome the impact of short-term re-election oriented decision making. So to brush aside a map that came to us as a result of community consultation and unilaterally decide on an approach that was only narrowly supported on council is disempowering to our community. This type of top-down move supports only those who are comfortable in their current housing and does not address those who do not see the type of housing that they need in this community. This map is not a vision for our future that excites. It's a frustrated acceptance of doing the least we can to prevent as much change as possible from occurring. Because I have hope for Oak Bay's future as a place of possibility for the next generation, for supporting seniors hoping to downsize, and for families who want housing options, I do not support this OCP and I will be voting against it. We need to work to increase a sense of belonging in Oak Bay for our families, youth, renters, and those who continue to fall into deeper levels of unaffordability. This resultant OCP can be summed up in the line that was deleted from page 23 of this OCP draft. The district could continue to choose a very limited approach to growth per the existing 2014 OCP, or it could consider some growth as a tool for meeting the vision, goals, and objectives expressed by the community. I choose vision, and so I won't be supporting this OCP.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Councillor Appleton, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I will use my time here, and I will use my time to outline my reasons for not supporting the proposed version of the OCP moving forward. And that is specifically with respect to process and the information considered in the draft OCP. I'd like to take this opportunity to indicate my deep disappointment in this council not debating the OCP that thousands in the community provided input to. Citizens, no matter where they feel the appropriate level of new housing in the community is, even if that's zero, will be alarmed that the public input represented in the land use maps generated through the OCP consultation process was so quickly set aside with no consultations on the amendment brought forward by the mayor, with a handful of hours of notice and no ability for the public to review in advance. As these amendments were clearly identified at the November 3rd meeting as starting from a blank slate, I wish to be clear that this council has never debated the OCP material presented to the public and developed over the course of more than a year of engagement. I believe we're entrusted to take that feedback that they've provided us through that process and not our own individual ideas. It was clear that the OCP map that was produced through public engagement required amendments based on the feedback from the public. This is not a simple dichotomy. Those materials required amendments based on feedback. We should have started with the map that our citizens provided input to and modified it to reflect what we heard. The material presented at the November 3rd meeting could have formed the basis for a healthy debate on the nature of what housing types and forms would work best in Oak Bay, but instead the last-minute amendments imply a false dichotomy between the highest and lowest levels of density. I had hoped that the process that we undertook subsequently would undertake consideration of amendments to the mayor's plan to incorporate more of the housing types that the community has asked for, specifically townhouses. Sadly, all of these, affecting all of 2 properties, were rejected with specific comments that no amendments would be considered. I'm so disappointed in this process. In the absence of these amendments, I do not believe that the draft OCP captures the feedback the public has provided. The process here followed to arrive at the proposed draft OCP will raise deep concerns in the public as to how their input will be incorporated into council decision making. As one resident communicated to council voicing their concerns about the process, I did not know that participating in the consultation sessions was not sufficient to make my voice count. There have been many comments made through this process about the provincial timelines that are driving the OCP updates, with the implication that leaves us no time to meaningfully debate the input from the public. I fundamentally disagree. The process should and could have proceeded efficiently with the map that the public provided input to. Most importantly, my concerns on the process here center on what we will tell the community the next time we ask for their input. How, given this process, will they trust that council will not set aside their contributions in favor of a design of their own? The most disappointing part of this process is seeing residents be disillusioned, frustrated, and cynical of council's handling of this issue. I have serious concerns about the process taken to arrive at this draft OCP, and so I cannot support it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. I had Councillor Braithwaite and Patterson and Green.
Thanks so much, Mayor. I'm going to be voting for the OCP, as I believe that the map that that we were given is a vision for what we heard from the community, the map that we have in front of us to approve. Overall, residents recognize the need to plan for the future, accommodate housing needs, and support a diverse population while protecting what makes Oak Bay special. We heard that there's a broad support for increasing housing choice, particularly for seniors, young families, and local workers. We heard that people want to see more townhomes, gentle infill, and low-rise housing where appropriate. Many people emphasize that new supply must be paired with real affordability tools, not only market units. And we heard that there's a strong preference for focusing most growth in the village areas and along transit corridors. And we heard that residents support a thoughtful, strategic approach, not blanket density across all neighborhoods. As far as character and design goes, community character remains important, and people emphasize strong design standards, heritage and tree protection, and sensitive transitions near existing homes. There was also an overwhelmingly strong support for tree canopy protection, natural assets, green building, and resilient shorelines. Many of our residents see environmental leadership and climate-ready planning as core to Oak Bay's identity. We also heard very clearly that infrastructure must keep pace with growth. Residents want a phased, managed approach aligned with water, sewer, mobility, parks, and services capacity. There's also support for walking, cycling, and transit improvements. And there's a continued concern about parking and local traffic impacts. Residents want thoughtful solutions. Residents are looking for clarity and they want clear maps, design guidelines, and predictable rules. So it's basically the right homes in the right places, growth that fits Oak Bay's character, realistic phased implementation, environment and tree canopy protection, infrastructure aligned with development, and clarity and transparency throughout. Our residents are supportive of change when it's planned, scaled appropriately, and clearly explained. They value heritage trees, livability, and neighborhood character, and they want these protected as we grow. In closing, I want to say that the public input reflects a desire for a balanced, thoughtful growth that responds to provincial requirements while reflecting Oak Bay values. Oak Bay supports new housing. We do not support blanket provincial mandates that ignore our community's unique character, infrastructure capacity, and public input. I know I remain committed to planning in a way that respects neighborhood character, protects the environment, and delivers meaningful housing options for our community. This proposed OCP helps to do that. I want to thank everyone again for who participated so far. I really appreciate the thoughtful feedback and continued engagement, and I do look forward to the public hearings where we can once again can hear from you. You know, Oak Bay welcomes new housing delivered responsibly, respectfully, and in line with community character and infrastructure. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Braithwaite. Please go ahead, Councillor Patterson, and I have Councillor Green.
Yes, Mayor, and I think Councillor Braithwaite has summed up a lot of what I wanted to say, so I will be briefer. But I am a member of council that did participate actively in the public engagement that we first undertook as a community when we were trying to do missing middle housing and creating greater diversity of housing. There was extensive public feedback into that, and then a more rushed process to that was mandated by the province, and not. I think many members of the community got engaged as that rolled along because they were still under the impression that what we had engaged in prior to that for our missing middle housing was the path that we were pursuing. They didn't realize that the provincial mandate so drastically altered that process. It's also not unusual to me that a fully built-out community does not have a rapidly changing population. That happened decades ago and over time in the community of Oak Bay. And yes, that changed dramatically throughout Canada and in the province of BC, and that is shifting quite dramatically once again. So I think what we have landed on is a more moderate and reasoned approach to aligning our desire to improve diversity of housing in a way that also is aligned with our infrastructure plans and the debt management plans that we have yet to discuss in that regard. So I think this was a clear response to what our community has pursued over some period of time. I think it supports the goals of the previous OCP, which are still very important to our community: the protection of the environment, the support of mitigating climate change, and the desire for diversity of housing. So I think that this will allow us to move forward in a reasonable way, and understanding how it rolls out will help us continue to plan for the future of Oak Bay. And I guess to respond to the, what do we tell occupants, or what do we tell our community who wanted so much more? I guess I wonder what we will tell the occupants of the 500 to 600 dwelling units that actually have to be demolished in order to achieve a lot of the goals we want. Those are the actual human implications to this whole process that we should not lose sight of while we are doing this, because it will affect. We're a fully built-out community. We don't have a lot of vacant land. We chose to include UVic lands. We choose to follow through, if we can, with the Oak Bay Lodge site, which is not owned by Oak Bay. But we still have a lot of work to do with our existing community, and I don't think we should. This is not just about boxes on a map. This is real people in real dwelling units, and I don't want us to lose sight of that. And I think that this process respects our desire to move forward reasonably with all members in all areas of the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. I will just read excerpts of a letter that I wrote to a resident following one of our last meetings, and I'm hoping this will be helpful to inform this debate. But I first want to say up front, there was nothing wrong with the process that we employed at this table. It was legal, it was proper. The mayor shared all of the material with all of us at the same time ahead of the meeting, and I think any suggestion that there was something wrong with the process is misguided. Some facts to consider. When I was first elected in Oak Bay in 2011, Oak Bay was described as built out. So when you say it's been stagnating for decades, I disagree. In fact, currently it has the third highest density per capita in the CRD, and of the 10 internationally recognized biodiversity assets in the region, 6 of them exist in Oak Bay. We have all been the beneficiaries, therefore, of gentle, careful, well-managed density. Because of its history and its place in the region, Oak Bay has been known for its community safety, natural environments and landscapes, parks, recreation and foreshore, older housing stock, and village centers. Yes, it has an older population, one of the highest per capita in the region. But that's easy to understand given the community assets we all appreciate and enjoy in such a walkable, beautiful, well-landscaped community. But it's noteworthy that many of the newer homes being built in Oak Bay are being built by younger people with younger families. The first version of the OCP draft was a cookie-cutter, lower mainland approach to development and density for Oak Bay. That's my impression. You reference living in other communities in Canada, and the greatest difference between high density in urban communities in Oak Bay is the availability of vacant land. Oak Bay is naturally constrained by its topography and natural environment. Yes, high density, as you describe it, would be possible, but only if we destroy the natural assets, landscapes, and older housing stock that we all value. The compromise we reached with the second draft of this OCP is widely supported by this community. If approved, we will meet our housing targets and continue to grow. As for community engagement on this topic, I have never seen Oak Bay as engaged or active as it has been for this OCP review. I do not agree that community engagement has not been fully inclusive, and for the first time in its history, Oak Bay created a communications department in 2019, and it has been extremely active on all media platforms. The department has also organized a wide range of community open houses and town halls and delivered community engagement workshops to council and staff. As for leadership, this council recently approved a major student housing development for Camosun College, renovated expansion of an expanded heritage rental house on Beach Drive, including new homes with suites, and will begin discussions with the University of Victoria about their plans for a major housing development on Cedar Hill Crossroad, an area that we are contemplating for pre-zoning. My greatest concerns will continue to focus on housing insecurity and affordability, especially for more vulnerable populations. And it's important to note that since this new legislation, Bill 44, was enacted in 2024, not one below-market home, affordable home, has been built in Oak Bay, not one. And all of the Plex housing that is on the market now are all in excess of $1.5 million each. Finally, I sense that ageism is also drifting into some of the public conversation in our community, which for me is very troubling. Elders and young people have more in common than they realize, especially when it comes to housing. They are at the greatest risk, in my view, especially for publicly funded housing and publicly funded elder health care. Finally, I am reminded every day that the decisions we make have real human impacts and are much more about building strong relationships, homes, neighborhoods and communities, and a sense of belonging than about simply meeting arbitrary housing units and targets. Not one affordable unit, as I said, has been built in Oak Bay since the enactment of Bill 44 2 years ago. This is an affordability crisis, and until or unless we effectively tackle the affordability issue, we will not effectively solve the housing issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I'll keep my comments reasonably brief, but I'll start my timer just to make sure I stay on time.
Sorry if I went over
No,
time.
you were within 5 minutes. That's all I asked. Yeah, I think I'll just, I think there's a little bit of a pinch point here. We're at the crunch time. I do want to acknowledge to all members of council what a priority housing has been for this council. From the very beginning, it was one of our priorities. We undertook right away an infill housing process that there was unanimous support on. We had tremendous feedback from the community on that. We had, in our survey, we had over 85% of people in support of tackling housing and looking at infill options. Then, of course, in 2023, the province announced it was going to come up with its own infill program. Bill 44 followed, and then in whatever order it was, Bill 13, 14, 15, 16, 43, 46, 47, and they're still coming, have changed the nature of what we've talked about. And so and despite that, as we undertook the OCP, this council unanimously agreed that we would look at housing more broadly as part of the OCP. We had to do the infill housing, but we did want to look at multifamily. And again, I just want to express my appreciation to council for being willing to have that conversation with the public and with each other about what the housing form should be. I do acknowledge that as we're at the point now of having to advance something, that there's a split and that there's a disagreement about how much is appropriate within the official community plan at this time. And I will acknowledge that there's a difference of opinion of how we should have gone about taking what was a recommendation from our external consultants based on the calculations for the amount of housing that should be put there to meet the housing targets, the 20-year housing target. I disagree strongly that there's at the end of the day, we did have for those confused about the process undertaken, there was a master map, very comprehensive, and we had two options. Motions could be made either to take that map and remove things, or to essentially look at that map and add portions of it back in. And we chose the latter. That was the direction given. We did have 3 meetings in which to take changes on that. We had motions from the majority of council to make changes to that. We've debated them robustly, and I appreciate that. This is the point we're at. If we're not at the point of satisfaction, the appropriate vote is in opposition. If you feel like where we're at is sufficient, the appropriate vote is to advance it. And if it advances tonight, it will go for public hearing. I think that public input is going to be very important. I think it's important we hear from the community on where we've ended up. I just want to share that this is not nothing. It's still thousands of units of additional multifamily housing that's being contemplated. And I just want to acknowledge that I think certainly part of my contemplation for the rationale of being more conservative in what to include in this OCP is the change from the province. Because under the changes that have been enacted by legislation, the OCP is no longer sort of a high-level guiding document. It means that anything that fits within the OCP descriptions ban us from having any public communication. We cannot have public hearings, we cannot receive communication, we cannot talk about things that are aligned with the OCP. So we have to make that decision very carefully at the official community plan level. The province has been not too subtle in their indication that if an application comes forward that is seen by them to be compliant with the OCP, they are quite willing to step in and ensure that it gets passed. So the level of detail attached to an official community plan process now, to my mind, is more restrictive than it was prior to this. So I do weigh those things as part of the consideration. I'm not sure we got it 100% right. In fact, I'm pretty sure we didn't, because it's pretty hard. I'm looking at the page numbers, 425 pages in the report tonight, and we probably read through a couple of thousand over the last few meetings. It's hard to get it perfect. So we're right now advancing something that we think is close, if we have the majority votes. And we really will welcome public input onto where we're at this point. So I'm supportive of it going forward. I think the number of units, location of the units, and the relative balance of scale, density, and location, to my mind, is appropriate. But of course, ultimately, it's up to council as to where we end up on this. So I'll leave my comments there. Everybody having had a chance to spoke, the motion, do we have the motion on the floor? I do believe we do. I'm prepared to call the question. So this is to be read a second time as amended. So the amendments happened in the previous meeting. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? I have Councillor Watson, Appleton, and Smart opposed. The next motion, can I have someone read
I'll
it the
move
next?
that council direct staff to schedule a public hearing for official community plan bylaw number 4942, 2025.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will support the motion to schedule the public hearing, even though I don't actually support second reading of the OCP, because I'm looking forward to hearing what the community has to say.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. We move to official, read aloud.
Mayor, there is an addendum, a recommendation on here.
Yep, we're not done yet.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought we were moving.
Nope, the last one is that council directs staff to submit the amended regional context statement.
Do you want me to read it?
I don't think we need it read
Okay,
aloud. I
I'll
think
just move the staff recommendation on the addendum.
So this is to submit the amended regional context statement. Is that sufficient for staff? Okay. Any discussion on that? Seeing any, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. That concludes item 7.2. We now move to item 7.3, which is upland siting and design for ADP 00192. This is for 2830 and 2850 Lansdowne Road. We've had a fair bit of correspondence on this item, and I'm probably a number of people in the audience here interested in this. I'll hand this over to Mr. Green, and just for the record, upland siting and design does not take public input at this meeting, but we certainly welcome the communication that's happened beforehand. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item is Upland Siting and Design application that was previously presented to Council on September the 8th of this year. Council will recall that Council referred this application back to staff to work with the applicant to adjust the building siting to reduce tree loss to maintain a park-like setting and focus on elements in the Upland Siting and Design guideline that reference general massing, proportion and overall articulation of buildings in relation to established housing and also relationship to existing buildings. Following Council's review of the original application, staff have worked with the applicant to address the two issues that Council referred back to staff to address. As a result, the applicant has amended their proposal as follows. Visualisation of the proposed buildings in relation to the context of the adjacent lots to demonstrate how the development fits with the context of low-density single-family dwellings and the building rhythm of Lansdowne Road. Internal fencing between the proposed homes has been changed to open horizontal black aluminium slats with planting at the base, making the fence less opaque and enhancing the open park-like setting of the proposed development. Revisions to the accessory dwelling unit proposed for 2850 Lansdowne Road to reduce the number of trees that would need to be reviewed from this part of the site by proposing a two-storey accessory dwelling unit that reduces the footprint of this building and which will preserve 8 bylaw protected trees, including 4 Gary oaks. The internal driveway width has been reduced by 800 millimetres. The remaining 6 metre wide laneway has been visually narrowed by an additional 2 metres through the installation of 1 metre wide permeable grass paver belts on each side, creating a more light park atmosphere and providing a more route-friendly surface. Additionally, both driveways serving the accessory dwelling units at 2830 and 2850 will be surfaced with grass pavers. There's also been enhanced tree replacement, including by planting large mature trees along the internal driveway, an overall reduction in the number of trees being removed, including both bylaw protected trees and non-protected trees. Of the 30 bylaw protected trees to be removed, 8 of which are either dead or in poor health. A significant increase in the overall number of trees to be planted, resulting in a total tree canopy coverage of 107% versus the tree canopy target of the R1 zone of 45%. As such, staff believe that proposed development conforms to both the OCB policies contained within policy H22 as well as the Upland Design Guidelines and is therefore supportable. The applicant is also here tonight and would like to give a short presentation on the revised proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Chris Foyd is here, is that correct? Correct. Yes, I'll just invite the applicant up. So just still need you to just read your name into the record and you may proceed.
Good evening. My name is Chris Foyd. I'm with 2XC Developments. I'm responsible for the design of this project. And to my left is Bianca Bodley of Biophilia Collective, which is the landscape architect who has designed our landscape plan, our tree removal and replacement plan, and she's available for any general queries on the landscape matters. How did we get here? Bill 44, a year or so ago, responding to the ongoing housing affordability and supply crisis, the province mandated that every community in the CRD present a strategy for meeting the objectives of increasing housing supply and diversity. Oak Bay's response was the implementation of revised zoning bylaws that would allow for up to 4 units of housing in the newly designated R zones. The Uplands neighborhood is unique in Oak Bay in that it does still allow for the 4 units of housing per lot. There's the additional requirement of a development permit for such projects. As the proponents of this project, there are a lot of challenges. The principal challenge in the project is basically marrying the R2 zoning bylaws to the Oak Bay design guidelines. There's an extra step in this development process that the proposal has to go to the advisory design panel for review and then recommendation to either approve or reject the proposal. Our project was first of all, of course, vetted by planning, by parks, and by the engineering department. The project was referred for approval by the planning department. The Parks Department approved our tree removal, replacement, and protection plan. And engineering's review of what we were proposing via our civil engineering plan raised no issues with engineering. The last and the heaviest lift in this process is going to the advisory design panel for siting and design. The advisory design panel, as we all know, is a group of professional architects, landscape architects, and planners who volunteer their times to the community to review projects that are brought before the community for their to find if they're a quality project in compliance with, in this case, the aspirations of the Uplands design guidelines. They're the gatehouse, the gatekeeper for this. Their title is mentioned 13 times in the guidelines themselves. They had a chance to review the project. We met with them. They gave unanimous approval to recommend, they voted unanimously to recommend approval of this project to council. Spool forward to September 8th. We were here in front of council. We went through the process. Council was given 3 options, to either accept, reject, or send us back to work with planning on some of the issues that they felt were you guys felt were outstanding in this process. Brian's given a good synopsis of what we've been up to in the interim. There we go. The first was there were some on council who had difficulty visualizing how the project presents itself on the street frontage.
Mr. Ford, you may find it easier, less neck-wrenching to look this way for most of our...
You're right.
There you go.
Yeah. Here's the phone. I'll turn my chair if I might a bit. Yes, there are some on council who had difficulty visualizing how this project presents itself on the street frontage, how it maintains the desired residential park setting that is described in the Uplands design guidelines. Our drawing package now includes this visualization of the entire Lansdowne street frontage, where you can see clearly the rhythm of the infill homes there, representing that rhythm that goes all the way down Lansdowne of 1 home per lot. In that same visualization, you can see that of the 25 trees that are in the front yard setback, that's 23 on our property, and those 2 Gary Oaks that are by the woman on the bicycle that are on Oak Bay's property. Our our plan requires the removal of 3 of them. One that's dead, and the 2 that are interfacing with our new driveway layout to the laneway to the back. Also visible in this visualization is how we're exploiting that copse of trees right in the center between the 2 properties as a shield. The way we've designed the driveway is as a curved chicane that comes in from the right behind the woman on the bicycle and comes in and curves through a chicane onto a straight laneway that splits the properties down the middle. We've used those trees to shield that, so your view isn't down the property there. The second request was, here, let me just see if I. Oh. There we go. The second request was to find a way, especially in the heavily treed upper right-hand corner of the site, the north end of 2850, to find a way to reduce the footprint of the accessory dwelling unit in that area to potentially save trees and protect the roots and the canopy at the back of the lot there. To that end, we have redesigned that home. Oh, sorry, we'll get back to that. There we go. This is the visualization of the new ADU on in the northeast corner of the lot. You can see by the stacking of the volume that we've basically half the footprint of it. This allowed us to save 8 bylaw protected trees, including 4 Gary oaks. We were also, there was some discussion about the amount of paving on the site. In fact, as you well know, these upland sites, you're allowed 2 driveways per lot. That's a lot of paving to get access to all of the 6 homes that we're proposing. We've amalgamated the driveway into a single lane there that comes in off of 2850, curves onto the lot past the pile of trees or the group of trees at the front of the lot, and then splits the middle there. We've reduced the width of that roadway by 800 mil, and we've introduced these bands of permeable grass pavers on either side of it. The 2 ADUs at the back, we've entirely grass paved those driveways there, as you saw in the visualization. How that presents itself visually is, this is a view of the internal driveway there with a reduced width of the laneway with the grass pavers. There's the enhanced trees that are part of the alley leading to the rear of the lot. Those are the big cherries that we've committed ourselves to buying to speed up the process of replacing the canopy coverage. This is the same view looking the other direction towards 2850. A couple of facts on the trees on the lots. This is always the contentious issue, and nobody, including myself, likes cutting down trees that I don't have to. We're providing housing here. Something has to give. We're going from one home per lot to 3 home per lots. There's just no way to do it without cutting down a tree. On the 2 lots that we have, there are 137 trees in the tree inventory, 74 of which are protected, either by species or size. 34 of these are Gary oaks. 5 trees in this inventory are either dead or dying and are recommended by our arborists for removal. Of the 137 trees in the inventory, 30 protected trees are required to be removed to make way for the new housing. Of those 30, 10 are non-native, and 5 of the 10 protected trees are actually on the invasive species list. I don't know how you can both be protected on an invasive species list, but there you go. Of the 30 trees that would have to be removed, 13 are Gary oaks. That's 13 of the 34 that exist on site. We have 21 left, and our replacement plan includes the planting of 27 new Gary oaks, bringing the project total to 48 Gary oaks, or 14 more than are currently on site. This is spread over the 2 lots. The 2 lots, you spread those 24, it's 24 Gary Oaks per lot spread over the 2 lots. That's the 10 mature existing trees and 14 replacement trees per lot. That is more than many lots in Uplands have currently. There was some concern about when you remove trees that there might be some blowdown risks for the neighborhood of the remaining trees. We commissioned a stand dynamic risk assessment by Margaret Simon, a registered forest professional with the Strathcona Forestry Consulting. Her conclusion was that, having visited the site, having witnessed the trees, that our proposal would not be a problem, and she did make some recommendations about how to work around the existing trees that we will implement during the course of construction. As Brian mentioned, our tree protection plan, which has been reviewed and approved by the Parks Department, which includes the planting of 51 additional trees, will enhance the tree canopy coverage, resulting in 107% coverage versus Oak Bay's canopy coverage target of 45%. These numbers have been again reviewed and approved by the Parks Department. The R2 zoning bylaws allow the 2 sites to have altogether 4 driveways. We've already covered that, and how we've really worked to minimize the amount of paving on the site through that, amalgamating it to a single driveway.
Mr. Ford, usually we sort of limit presentations to about 5 minutes. We're at 10 minutes right now, so I'm just
Really?
gonna, yeah, if you could just maybe just
Okay, I'm gonna wrap
hit your
up
high
then.
points, and
Why don't
we'll
I
have a
wrap
chance for
up?
questions, so.
Yeah, okay, let's wrap this up. This is not a rezoning. This project is in compliance with the R2 zoning bylaws. Upland special status requires that a development permit for any new development in this area. The steps toward getting a DP in the Uplands is to present your proposal to Planning, Parks, and Engineering. Planning then passes the proposal on to the advisory design panel, whose expertise allows them to analyze the project against the aspirations of the Uplands design guidelines. Every one of Oak Bay's professional departments and panels has recommended that this project, as it stands today, be approved. We have a housing affordability crisis. The answer to this crisis is relatively simple: more doors at every level. This is called housing diversity. There is, in the world of professional planning and architecture, the concept of the housing ladder. You can't solve the housing crisis by building exclusively 1-bedroom rental apartments in downtown towers. The people who buy these as their starter homes eventually get married, have kids, and need more space. Most of us have experienced this trajectory in our lifetimes. In times past, there was usually somewhere to move to that offered more space at a considerably lower price point than we see today. This is the housing ladder. If you remove rungs from the ladder, particularly with a growing population, that blockage of mobility inevitably results in price inflation.
Mr. Ford, I'm gonna just have you wrap up now. I appreciate your comments. We
Okay.
are here, as you point out,
Very
for
good.
citing and design, not so much for the broader piece, but your points are well made and they're articulated in the letter, so thank you. Anything else you wish to add before we wrap this
No,
up?
I'm done. I don't know
thank
if
you.
there's any time for Bianca to do her project, but she can answer.
I think if there's any questions with me, we'll get there, but let's, just in the interest of meeting our management,
Sure. No
meeting
problem.
management, I'd like to just get to consideration of the application in front of us. Thank you, and I'll turn to members of council. Are there questions from members of council to applicant or staff? I have Councillor Patterson, then Braithwaite.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation and the report from staff. I do have one question for staff, Mayor, through you.
Please.
And that is on the applicant submission, page 14 on the PDF that we have. The applicant submission states, infrastructure, Uplands features the most advanced stormwater and sewer systems in the municipality, making it the most suitable area within Oak Bay for densification. I am wondering if our staff could provide validation or qualifying information about that statement. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Bowl. I'm assuming that's referring to the updates we've just done, certainly the newest. Go ahead, Mr. Bowl.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through you, Yeah, I can't comment on the wording that the applicant provided, but back to this proposal and servicing of properties. We just heard earlier this evening that the Uplands sewer separation project is substantially completed with the pipes now in the ground that we need to have. And projects like these are required to connect, in this case, to the new infrastructure that's available. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Councillor Braithwaite?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, through you, I do have a number of questions. So even after the revisions, 30 protected trees are proposed for removal. So can you please explain why this level of removal is still necessary and what specific design alternatives you explored to avoid further tree loss, please?
Do you wish to hand that over?
Am I back on? Yeah, as I stated the first time I was here, we were allowed to build 4 homes on these properties. Something's got to give. Trees are what's got to give. And we've done our best. This project also has to be a commercially viable product. It's very popular to paint the developer as the villain in this movie, but most of the housing stock in Oak Bay has been built by developer builders like myself.
Sorry, Mayor, just through you, just to clarify, it's not 4 houses on a property, it's a 4-plex. So one unit that has 4, or one building that has 4 units in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can go to staff, but the current zoning wording in the bylaws, there are 4 units allowed, 4 units per lot, and it sets the total amount of lot coverage and square footage based on a percentage of the lot. So it isn't specific to the number of buildings, it's specific to the number of units.
Thank you. So Uplands is defined as a mature canopy and park-like setting. So how does your design meaningfully preserve the ecological function of this landscape rather than simply replacing a mature canopy with younger plantings?
There are 137 trees on the site. We are removing 30. So there are still trees on the site. In fact, there are, of the 74 which are designated as protected, we are preserving all 44 of those, and then we're replacing. So this concept of a canopy, we can't maintain the canopy, but we'll replant, and that canopy will eventually exceed.
Mr. Ford, I think your landscape architect wanted
sorry.
to add into it.
Visual, if you
Okay.
want to put
Well, no, you go
Are
ahead.
we allowed to put the slideshow back on or no?
I think we can put the slides back up, sure.
Did you want to?
The second round of slides has a visual that shows the canopies. It might be useful for.
So I'm going to have you come forward, just state your name into the microphone for the record, and then speak into the microphone so we can hear you.
My name's Bianca Bodley, and I'm representing my landscape architecture firm, Biphilia Design Collective, and we've just put together some visuals to show the tree canopies that might be useful for you folks. So this slide is showing in red the trees to be removed, in green the protected trees to remain, in orange is the non-protected trees to remain, and the purple shows the proposed replacement trees, which is 51 that is proposed, 48 that's required. So this kind of gives you a sense of the canopy coverage, and this is the proposed trees that are on the plan to replace what was being removed, if it's helpful. The green is the Gary Oaks, the blue is the magnolia, and the purple is the cherry trees on the LA of the drive aisle. So that kind of gives you a sense of the tree canopy coverage that's existing and what's going to be coming.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Yeah, because a lot of residents have noted that the remaining trees might face additional stress due to the construction and the proximity of the grading. So what assurances are there, or could there be, that the surviving canopy can remain viable long-term under this particular design?
So a couple of mitigating factors that are taken during this process is that the arborist on file provides a tree protection zone around the roots of the protected trees. So not on this plan, but on the plan that was submitted for review to the planning department. It shows basically an outline of where construction can't go beyond to protect impact. To protect them from compaction. And then in addition to that, this particular design took into account permeability in the area where where a large majority of the trees were in the north of the property. Those two parking areas, which are were changed to grasscrete, which will allow them to be more porous. And then the drive aisle itself is permeable asphalt. So it's necessary to have those arteries to get to your front door, of course, but those were the measures that were taken to make it more permeable.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Braithwaite?
Yeah, I have a few more questions. Thank you. And through you, Mayor, the Uplands guidelines emphasize large lots, separation between homes and landscape dominance. So how do you see, and I guess this is probably for Mr. Foyd, how do you see a 6-unit internal cluster as supporting those principles rather than representing a major departure from the traditional form?
Mr. Foyd? It's a broad philosophical question.
The Uplands design guidelines never anticipated the SSMUH infill policies. So this is, again, the challenge of the project. How do you marry the new R2 zone with the Uplands design guidelines? The advisory design panel described it as an elegant solution. I have nothing else to add to that.
Councillor Braithwaite?
Thank you. And in one of the letters we received, it talked a little bit about something that you had said in regards to that the front yard setbacks align with other homes on the street, and the home facing Lansdowne is built on the footprint of its predecessor. However, when you look at the, and they put an, I think this is on page 216 on the second addendum in our.
I'm just going to turn that into a question. Do you want to just know where this is relative to the current home?
Yeah, I mean, it shows that in actual fact that the setback or it is not in the same footprint as its predecessor.
They are not exactly in the same footprint, but they are in line with the other homes on the street. The setbacks are governed by the R2 zone, and we meet and exceed those setbacks. The rhythm of the street's maintained. There is no exactly line that you can line them up, but we do meet the setbacks, and the setbacks are similar to other homes on that street.
Councillor Braithwaite?
Thank you. I'll ask one more question and pass it along, and it might come back to me later on. So through you, Mayor, some portions of your letter appear to dismiss resident concerns as misinformed or unreasonable. Can you clarify how you've engaged with the neighbors and how their feedback directly shaped the revised design that you brought forward today?
I had very little, that was my business partner's job to interact with the neighbors. I didn't, other than a nice old fella from across the street who you met, Mayor Murdoch, that we've been having chats with. And I mean, obviously nobody likes change.
Councillor Braithwaite?
I'm not sure I agree with that comment, but yeah. And we also received a very well-written letter from, and I'm hoping I can find it here, from the people who, here, the Garry Oak Meadow Preservation Society. And they did bring up about Uplands as a Canadian historic site, and how do you, I mean, how do you look at the design that you've put forward and kind of think about how it fits into something like a Canadian historic site, and what is supposed to be a park-like setting in the design of the houses within this district?
Probably largely answered this question so far, but specific to that portion and
The guardians
historical
of
site.
the Uplands design guidelines, the advisory design panel found it to be an elegant solution for quality infill housing.
Is there any other questions for the applicant or for staff on the application? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to the applicant. I had a question just with regards to the building footprints and the process with this latest revision, particularly looking at the site plan that we have on page 537 or any particular site plan. I guess in appreciating the work that was done with the top right accessory dwelling unit to reduce the impact on trees, Looking at the one on the left, it begs the question of why not do the same? But then when I looked at the various different trees that that building permit takes up, most of them appear to be poor or actually dead already. So I wondered, could you speak to the top left accessory dwelling unit and whether it's impacting any significantly beautiful Gary oaks? And similarly, on the right middle unit, where it looks like you could shift the house and save many more trees, the trees on the middle right show up as fair in the report. And so I just wondered if you could speak to those two particular properties, the top left and the middle right, with regards to are there opportunities that are still there to save more trees, or was that really thoroughly looked at?
Oh, sorry. So the bulk of the trees on the site are in the upper right-hand corner at 2850. We wanted at least one home on the site that was completely accessible. That's the one-story unit at 2830C at the back, the ADU. It's also a place where the trees were not of particularly high quality. They were in poor condition, and it was thin. It's thin back there. That looked like the best place for us to put out that 100% accessible unit. Your question, I didn't quite get the question about the one on the middle right.
Councillor Smart?
Yeah, thank you. In the middle on the right-hand side, it appears that there's 4, maybe 5 trees significantly impacted by the footprint of that building. And from a naive perspective, it feels like you could give up the south-facing front yard, move the building, and save a number of trees there.
You mean
So I'm just wondering, did you consider that, or the trees being labeled fair? I'm just wondering how you balance the potential for or opportunity to save more trees with that building footprint versus the state of the trees. If you could just speak more to that.
Just to be clear, you're suggesting moving the middle house south? The layout, we're looking for, again, a commercially viable project there with 6 similar sized lots. The 4 homes in the front are 2-story homes. The way the sun falls onto the site, the south is to the bottom of the project there. But we wanted as much spacing as possible between those south faces of those buildings. If we pushed that house south, it would suddenly end itself up in the shadow of the house in front of it. That was the reason for the placement there. When we had looked at many different configurations. We looked at 4-home models, we looked at townhouse models, we looked at cluster models. This seemed to be the one model that represented the best applications considering the density of of the desire for this park-like uplands atmosphere. Space between the homes, the individual homes.
Councillor Smart, anything else?
Yeah, thank you. So just to summarize, with that particular building, the priority was for quality of life in that building over existing tree preservation in that particular area?
We're working for a balance.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And commercial viability. We're guilty of wanting to get paid to do this.
Thank you very
Sounds
much for
like
that.
it's evil.
Any other, go ahead, Councillor Patterson, and then Appleton.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And just question, it does say in the application that there's the applicant has spoken about it, the complexity of balancing provincially mandated objectives of SMU with the proposed development in Uplands. And so this proposal is for 6 high-quality homes, each with 2 covered parking spaces and, of course, the drive in front of them, which are more or less standard in this market segment. So I guess I'm wondering why in this proposal we need the larger garages to house the vehicles, and what exactly this market segment then is that demands, say, a higher parking ratio than what we would see in perhaps other areas of the district.
Yeah, I think if you did a survey of the last 100 homes built on regular 6,000 to 9,000 square foot lots in South Oak Bay, 2-car garages are standard. It's just a standard of the market. And you probably notice that. I mean, most people have 2-car garages.
Councillor Patterson?
Yeah, yes, thank you, except, you know, certainly when we speak about the provincial housing order, parking is not something that is given a high priority. And so I'm trying to balance, how do we weigh this application in terms of the SMU and its goals for affordability and reduced parking needs to create space with what is presented before us.
But we've also heard neighbors' concerns about parking, that they felt if there wasn't enough on-site parking, they'd start parking on the street. We've seen that in many of the letters, concerns about guest parking or the inevitable landscapers' trucks parked all over the street there on what is a bit of a narrow stretch of street. So we have tried to put as many cars as possible, both on site and out of sight as possible.
Anything else?
Yeah, yes, thank you. Just following up on that then, how do you, typically, what I have experienced in Oak Bay is although even with dwelling units that have 2-car garages, the garages are often not used for the vehicle. They're often used more as storage facilities or for ancillary purposes in the homes. If that was to occur in say in a development like this, would it in fact create an appearance more of a parking lot within the community, within its area, rather than what we see before us, which is, you know, the boxes and a lot of greenery.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
I think it's, I'm just going to say, I think it's a question that we probably have to answer.
Yeah. I can't
The
control.
future use is we can make predictions, but we probably won't know.
Yeah, I can't control that, where they put their cars, but we give them the options of putting them away.
I have Councillor Appleton next.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to our guests. I just wanted to ask specifically about a comment that was responded to in the Uplands Design Guidelines review form. We spoke specifically about massing and scale of properties last time, and the response under design basically indicates the response is, while homes on Lansdowne and surrounding streets tend to be quite large, our 3 homes collectively reflect the massing and footprint allowable for a single home in the Uplands. But I would suggest that that's the point in terms of what we're trying to achieve with the massing guidelines in Uplands is larger scale buildings in a smaller footprint rather than multiple buildings spread out over a larger lot. So this was not addressed except for the small, there has been a revision to one of the buildings to reduce the footprint. But given what is known about the typical layout of lots in Uplands, why was this the approach that was taken?
Mr. Floyd?
Yeah, well, you asked the same question before that, and again, I can only, we tried different models, and commercially viability of the project is based on standalone homes, and again, the advisory design panel had no problem with that approach.
Appleton?
Thank you. I guess as a follow-up, I would say, number one, commercial viability is not our exclusive, is not our purview here. It's whether or not it's adhering to the guidelines or not. And number two, yes, I did ask that same question last time, and that's why I'm asking the same question again, because I didn't see that it was comprehensively responded to. And also, I've heard a number of comments with respect to the advisory design panel and their role in providing advice to council. Ultimately, Uplands siting and design permits are issued by council with the recommendation of the ADP. So while I can appreciate the professional expertise that the ADP has provided, ultimately it is council's decision on that particular item. I would ask a general question with respect to the approach taken on this lot. I mean, the Uplands siting and design guidelines are there and clear and very prescriptive in nature in a way that design guidelines for a residential neighborhood anywhere else essentially in, well, in the lower island are. I mean, it's almost unique and very special in the way that it lays out its design guidelines. What I'm seeing here does not respond effectively to those design guidelines. Like, given the information that was available and the context of the site, I'm struggling to figure out why this was the approach that was taken, given that that was the information that was provided up front. So if you could elaborate, please.
Sorry, I missed the question there.
I think it's just a question of general response to, again, I think expressed that it didn't feel it was meeting the overall arching aspects of the Uplands design guidelines.
These guidelines have not been updated. They, when they talk about a single home or a principal building on it, it was never in anticipation of the SSMUH guidelines, which in the R2 zone allow for up to 4 standalone buildings, 2 principal structures, 2 accessory dwelling units. 80% of the R2 sites in Oak Bay are in Uplands, so they are de facto Uplands guidelines. That you're allowed to do this, by split up these homes into standalone structures. I know at the last meeting you had suggested that we build an omniplex with 4 units inside of it, or a cluster of smaller, go ahead.
Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just as a point of clarification, I did not suggest any one specific type of housing. I suggested that there were different options available for this property. So I did not suggest any one specific type of option. I believe that to respond effectively to the design guidelines, which are the design guidelines as applied by council, that there is a serious opportunity in the Uplands for density in that way. And I think that we want to build support and build buy-in for the types of infill that can be done in Uplands. This, as far as what I'm seeing right now, and as far as the response to the direction that staff gave or that council gave to the applicant last time, is falling short. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Green?
Thank you, Mayor. And following along Councillor Appleton's thinking and questions, which have been very good, was there any consideration through you to the applicant of reducing the footprint on both of these lots to 4 primary housing units without ADUs, alternate dwelling units? So 4 primary housing units on the 2 lots. That would in fact not require the removal of Gary oak trees. So in essence, have you thought of a redesign at all since our last meeting? Thank you.
So that's a very specific question in terms of going from 3 to 2 per lot on this.
We
design.
started there. That's where we started. But again, it's not your problem, but we do have to look at commercial viability. And the best use of this property was actually 3 homes by our math.
Councillor Braithwaite?
Thank you.
Councillor Green? Okay, thank you. Other questions? I don't have questions. I have some thoughts. So we have the application in front of us. We're a little bit behind my scheduled plan for the meeting, but we've had a very thorough series of questions. I might, at this point, maybe perhaps either seek to either put the recommendation on here, and we can debate that and either approve it or defeat it. That's probably my recommendation. It's usually generally better to put a motion on the floor for consideration of action as opposed to that, or someone wishes to move again, same options as before, approval, decline, or submit back with specific acts for amendments.
I'll make a motion that we decline the application as presented.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. I think we all have a chance to speak to this.
Thanks, Mayor. I do want to acknowledge that the efforts that staff did to work with the applicant to respond to the concerns identified in the meeting in September But after reviewing everything and the full package and the correspondence, I have not seen this level of correspondence on an application in a very, very long time. I don't believe I can support this proposal at this time. There's a number of reasons, of my concerns. The remaining tree loss is still too significant for me. While the reduction to 30 trees is an improvement, the scale of the removal remains substantial, particularly because this is in the Uplands, where the tree canopy is core to the neighborhood's character and heritage value and ecological function. And at this point, I'm not convinced that all reasonable alternatives to further reduce removals have been exhausted. And secondly, that the proposal continues, to me, to push the edges of the Uplands character. The Uplands siting and design guidelines, as has been discussed already, requires a new development to reinforce the park-like residential landscape and architectural rhythm. And we do need to, as I've already brought up, we do need to remember that in 2019, Uplands was made a National Historic Site, and we need to treat it as such. I have concerns about precedent and cumulative impacts. This application is not happening in isolation. I think that there's a point where we kind of have to look at whether or not we should be looking at Uplands more as a whole as far as this form of development goes. I think that the provincial housing framework has changed the landscape for all municipalities, but Uplands is a very unique heritage, environmental, and urban design. It has this expectation that deserves deliberate policy guidance, not piecemeal interpretation, and that's what I feel like we're doing right now is piecemeal interpretation. So I think that maybe what we should do is we should pause on proposals like this within the Uplands until we have a clearer alignment between what the provincial direction is, what Oak Bay's expectation for the Uplands is, and the community's understanding of what future development will look like. So for me right now, I feel I can't support an application like this for the Uplands, and it's based on a bunch of this other stuff that was said around this table. Councillor Appleton made some great points, as did Councillor Green, so I just can't support it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. I don't have go ahead, Councillor Green.
Thank you, and I'll be very brief. I think Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Appleton previously did a good job in covering off the points I'm concerned about. I am very concerned about the deforestation of this property, and it is no more or no less than it is deforestation. And these trees are not just living in isolation. They form an overall ecological tree canopy that is described by the Garriott Meadow Preservation Society as the ecological lungs of the Uplands area. I think we've talked about the heritage status, the historic significance of this whole area. This departs from a standard of community planning that is actually embedded in separate legislation dating to 1935 for all kinds of important reasons, beginning with the Hudson's Bay Company and Uplands Farm property. So this is a purposeful area that was built specifically as a park-like setting, and it is not unlike the Queen's Park area in New Westminster, which continues to this day to preserve its over 250 homes. It is a special area. It is treated as such. I don't think any of us are saying no more density in the Uplands. I think we're saying it depends on what and how and where, and context is everything in this regard. So I cannot support this application, and I really encourage the applicant to rethink his approach. The Uplands is a very special place, and I think we have to honor that. Thank you.
Councillor Appleton and Watson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it does mean, I'm not feeling very pleased about supporting the motion that's on the floor, but nevertheless I have to do it. It does not make me feel happy in any way, shape, or form to not support additional housing. New additional housing is critical for this community. I think one of the things that I want to respond to directly was a comment that was made here, was that the Uplands design guidelines never anticipated small-scale multi-unit housing. and that is definitively true, but therein lies the challenge. This is a distinct area with very specific design guidelines, so I don't believe that it's unreasonable for developers to carefully review those guidelines and come up with an appropriate design. I will restate, I believe this is a missed opportunity to design a really interesting, denser housing form that can fit in Uplands. Uplands has a ton of opportunity in this regard because of the scale of the lots and because of the scale of some of the buildings that are on those lots. So we need buy-in. I believe very strongly that infill should not be restricted elsewhere in the community, that infill and density is appropriate for the Uplands. But there are a lot of really interesting ideas that could make that happen on these sites that can essentially make that density very low profile or almost invisible in the way that what is effectively a subdivision here does not do. So I can see the future need for some more prescriptive guidelines and some more prescriptive information with respect to larger scale buildings and multi-unit buildings in the Uplands. I think that that's eminently something that council could revisit. But exactly as staff have indicated in their presentation, they indicate that this is a departure from development previously seen in Uplands, given the way the site appears to be quote unquote subdivided. And I agree with that. And I think it would be difficult to look at the Upland siting and design guidelines, which are there for review, and not interpret that type of design and site layout as not being compatible with the design guidelines. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Watson?
Thank you. I will not be supporting this motion. I think that there is still significant merit in this application, and with some more work, I think I would like to see it again, and I'll just speak to why. I think that, honestly, the applicant and both council are a little bit between a rock and a hard place with respect to this proposal because, and I agree, I think that the applicant it's a fair point he makes about the fact that the Uplands design guidelines at the moment, they did not anticipate the smooth zoning, and we haven't updated. I think that's a fair observation. I think that those guidelines at this point in time probably do need to be looked at in the context of our new reality, and that hasn't happened yet. In the meantime, somebody's bringing forward an application, and to its merit, I have to say that with respect to the National Historic Site characteristics that have been protected, it doesn't defy them in any aspect at all. I mean, I think it supports them in every aspect, except, in my view, still the tree canopy. But I think it's a little strong to say that deforestation is what is being proposed. I think it's reforestation is what's being proposed for this proposal, and there's still quite a lot of tree retention. However, I do think there is still opportunity with this application to tweak that a little bit further. It is a special tree canopy, and I think that some decisions have been made that could be reevaluated again. On the other hand, we are not the body who are the investor. We are not the people who are going to be buying these suites. And so if this product doesn't attract new residents, then we get nothing. And so I think it's really not necessarily council's role to try and design the outcome. It's to protect the values that we hold dear. So I think that the tree canopy issue is still worth further exploration, but I think that there is so much merit to the actual architectural design, the site layout, the environmental features that have been added. The applicant has gone away and done not quite everything that we asked for. I still don't think that the applicant has really responded sufficiently to our request about maintaining the tree canopy in that corner of the site, or more generally. But I think that everything else has been addressed, and if we keep applicants away. Who's going to come forward and make any proposals to do housing development in Oak Bay? I think who else would pick up these lots and come back with something? This is very, very fine, high quality housing, and I do agree with the notion that it is doors that matter, that I would like to see some reconsideration of what we have in front of us, but I do not want to say no to it.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. That's Councillor Smart next.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be echoing a lot of Councillor Watson's comments. I do feel like the applicant has come back and addressed many of the concerns that we had put before them, and rather thoughtfully. And I feel like I struggle looking at the site plan because it feels like that commercial viability piece has been prioritized over the nature first planning. Having done quite an analysis of the trees that are impacted, I can see a lot of the reasons why there wasn't maybe the opportunities there that we had hoped. Having said that, I do feel like the tree canopy still needs some more attention in this plan. The whole idea of the park-like setting is to really take nature and design the houses around it, and this is still feeling very much like it was drawn without being on the site. Having been to the site, I understand why it has ended up this way, because it is very much cleared in the center. There isn't a lot of topography or rock outcropping. So as I say, I feel like it's really close. I wish we could just do a little bit better with the tree canopy and see it again. I do think that the high quality of the architecture, the streetscape, we did have some comments from residents about feeling like this project might ruin the reputation of Uplands. I really don't think so. This is very high quality design. And there are a lot of merits to this application. So I can't support denying the application, because I do feel like the applicant has come back and addressed most of our concerns. But I do really struggle with the balance of prioritizing the tree canopy and nature in the current layout.
Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting the motion that has been put forward, and again, it doesn't give me any pleasure to do that either, because I think there are quite a few merits, and the applicant has worked with this. I like the fact that it's just a single drive lane into the development, and the reduced tree removal is certainly a step in the right direction. And the improvement in biodiversity is a step in the right direction. But I, like Councillor Appleton, think that it's about the mass and the opportunity that could exist here. When I think of what has just taken place with massing in an area closer to the village, and more recently applications and conversions of some of the existing homes to provide, again, not necessarily low-cost housing, but quality housing that will suit residents of Oak Bay. I was hoping to see more of that in particularly this being a main drive, the Lansdowne Drive, and a massing that was in more keeping with some of the other dwelling units that are in Oak Bay, even though perhaps not single family, a multiple dwelling unit with opportunities for a diverse housing of a different nature. My concern here is that moving forward with this, we will be setting an easier precedent perhaps to achieve with continuing down the path of the luxury or high quality single family dwellings, rather than aspiring to perhaps a more amenable multi-type form of housing that can fit nicely into the Uplands design guidelines, and our desire to maintain more of the environmental aspects, so that and the tree canopy that so important to Uplands. And I would hate to have us go down this path because there's a lot of large housing stock in Uplands, not all of it, but there are a number of large housing units that I would really like to see go down the same path as some of what we have accomplished in some of the character homes that have just been done. And so if, you know, and perhaps I can't understand why it works in one area and why it doesn't work in another, and that hasn't come about. But yeah, really, if you can reduce the scale of the footprints over the entire lot and keep it more as a single mass, that is something I would really like to see. So I will support the motion to deny. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Sorry, Councillor Patterson. Just glancing across. Yeah. So I'll speak to the motion. I don't support the motion to decline. And I, for some of the same reasons that have been articulated around the table, I just want to acknowledge the applicant. I mean, we have, when the small-scale multi-unit housing came forward, we contemplated how we were going to, whether or not we were going to include the Uplands in that. And I think what's fair to say is that we put forward zoning and bylaws that articulated the scale of massing and other things on these lots, and left with the agreement that would essentially leave it to the applicants to come forward within those frameworks. We also have a siting and design that gives us some more control in the Uplands. I am cognizant of the fact that I don't think the way that we've done our zoning is 100%. I think what I'm hearing around this table is that if we want to limit the number of buildings on a lot, we should do that through zoning. I think that's a reasonable ask. And so we have a situation here in which we've approved zoning, and now we've got an application within that zoning that's a high quality design but has an impact on trees. And so I kind of weigh this against the measure of reasonableness. The challenges here are primarily, does the impact of the design make it look like a much higher density housing form factor than we're used to in the Uplands? And I would say it does. I would say that they've done a pretty remarkable job of trying to mitigate that aspect of it. Certainly really appreciate, I think just want to highlight and flag the efforts to retain the front clusters of trees, the turning of the driveway. That really takes away from sort of a tunnel look. You really won't see much of that driveway. There's a lot of really positive aspects here. But I think we're kind of in this hard place where we've set zoning. The builders come forward with 3 units, not 4 on the lot. They're large, they're luxury, which I think is in keeping with the Uplands. I don't have a problem with any of that. I think the points raised by Councillor Watson about, could this do a little bit more tweaking? Is there any way of looking at moving the houses a little bit to try and retain or insert more trees? I'm comfortable with that. But we've had many applications for single-family homes in the Uplands that have lost, more than a dozen trees. And it's just the reality. Small houses have come out and large houses have gone in, and you're allowed to take them out when they're in that footprint. So I can't say that it's reasonable to turn it down just for that piece. Yeah, and I think, if I look at how far it's come from the previous to this, the efforts to kind of retain it, I feel like we're on the right path here. So, I don't feel comfortable. I do think that we as a council have an obligation to relook at our zoning and make sure that we're setting it in a way that actually sets the expectations. I think that is an ask of us. I think given what we've put in there and what's come forward, it's pretty close to reasonable. And so I can't support just declining it. I think it has room to move, and it's quite close to me that it's something that would be supportable. I do want to say, though, part of that is that this is a fairly unique site in the Uplands. It's flat. It's not driving a lot of blasting, which is nice. Its ability to, because it's flat, to share a driveway and to have that articulation and stuff on a flat piece of property is quite unique. There are not a lot of double lots in the Uplands in this kind of scenario, and so I think I'm quite happy and comfortable looking at this uniquely. I would not support this at large within the Uplands because I think it would take away from the park-like setting. I don't think that's the right piece, but I do think there's room for these kind of alternate design kind of models to fit in that kind of juxtaposition. One of the primary drivers in the original Upland siting and design piece, the reason they had a design panel was to ensure that there wasn't a duplication, a replication, a cookie cutter model in the community. And so I think we also have to sort of make sure that we're not so fixated on that. Now, I hear the points, and if the majority feel like it's just not the right thing, then I'm comfortable with that. But I'm not comfortable with it going and saying, this is the last chance within this framework. I think it's close enough that it deserves a second chance. So I can't support the motion to decline outright. Any other discussion before so the motion on the floor right now is to decline the application. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, I guess I would just want to expand on some of those comments and say I really hope that that this doesn't make this project completely go away and that we see it again in another form.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question. The motion on the floor right now is to decline the application. With that, I'm going to I'll call the question. All those in favor to decline? And those opposed? I have Councillor Smart, myself, and Watson opposed. That motion carries. That is all of our duty here at this table. I do look forward to something coming back on this piece of property. We do need to move forward tonight on the next item on the agenda, which is 8.1, another upland siting and design. This one has a development variance permit. For those of you who are here, thank you for coming. Development variance permit DVP 00179 for 2764 Dorset Road. Sam, Mr. Hatfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. The district has received an application for a development variance permit, an upland siting design permit for the property located at 2764 Dorset Road. The purpose of the permit or of the application is to allow for the construction of a single-family dwelling on the property, as well as 2 rear patio areas, additional landscaping, walking paths, and the widening of the existing driveway. The proposed design conforms to the district zoning bylaw apart from the amount of paved area proposed for the front yard, for which the applicant has applied for a variance to increase the maximum limit from 25% of the front yard area to 30% to enable additional walking paths on the property that wind around existing mature trees, as well as the widening of the driveway from approximately 3.2 meters to 4.3 meters wide. The upland siting and design application was presented to the advisory design panel on October 21st, 2025, and the panel recommended the application be approved. Staff find that the proposed designs conforms to the upland siting and design guidelines and are recommending approval for both applications. The applicants Jesse and Tara Brewster are in attendance online tonight if there are any questions from council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hatfield. Are there any questions from members of staff on this? To the applicant? I'm not seeing any. Councillor Smart?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask, through you, Mayor, to staff, just a little bit of a clarification on sort of the justification and the reason for asking for this extra amount of paving, just why the driveway needed to be so wide.
Sure. Mr. Hatfield, do you have that answer? Do you wish to go to the applicant?
My understanding is that it was just for further driveway utility and as well as to aesthetically match the size of the proposed garage, but I'll turn it over to the applicant from there.
Sure, and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Jesse Brewster here. That's exactly right, Sam. The existing home had a small single garage. We didn't go for a completely double garage, but it's an oversized single. We originally had the driveway the width of the full garage. We didn't meet the variance or the requirements for that, so we just matched it to the garage door, essentially, is what we're looking to do. If we made the driveway any narrower, it's going to be pretty difficult to get the car in and out and not have that pavement to at least the edge of the door.
Councillor Smart?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to potentially the applicant, I was just wondering if it was being considered to angle the concrete driveway into the landscape in such a way to again, utilize the sort of permeability of the site to deal with the rainwater.
Over to you, Mr. Brewster.
Sure. I'm not sure I understand the angling concept. If maybe you could help me out with that.
Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I've just wanted to understand, I guess, you know, with the ask of having more permeable surface or like impermeable surface, if something was being done, I guess, to compensate for the ask.
Yeah, I think one of the things, like most of our walking paths are actually gravel pads or pavers with gravel in between, so they are permeable surfaces, although I don't think the bylaws recognize that. It gets counted as paved even though water goes through it. So I mean, that's part of it as well. We're happy to work with council if it's a big concern. I will say we originally had, and Sam will attest to this, 38%. That was something that the planning department wouldn't support. So we wanted their support before council. So we did kind of make the driveway as narrow as we could. And we are looking for a 5% variance. I think the original issue, and Sam highlighted, is like, as it sits right now with just a 7-foot garage door, it's already 18% of the 25 allowed, which doesn't really leave a whole lot of room to have paths to the front door. We're also trying to marry that with, you know, keeping existing paths as to prevent root damage on the two beautiful birch trees that we have in front of our house that we're trying to keep. And so all of those things kind of went into the design. I am worried if we do make it any narrower, it's going to look funny. If you have a pavement that just goes up to a door and doesn't quite match the width of the door. So there's design elements there too that were considered when we were looking at this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brewster. I think that's the end of that question. Any other questions for the applicant or staff? I'm not seeing any. Is there any members of the public online or in person that would like to speak to the application? This is speaking specifically to the variance request. That's the only portion of this that's available for public input. We do give a notice to within 50 meters of the property to give them an opportunity to jump in. If you're online, you can raise your hand through the Zoom app, or if you're calling in through the 855 number, you would hit *9 to raise your hand. I do not see hands popping up left, right, and center here, so I am going to come back to this table, and perhaps someone would be prepared to move
I'll
the
move
motion.
that development variance permit DVP 00179 to increase the maximum allowable front yard paved surface area in the R2 zone from 25% to 30% for the property located at 2764 Dorset Road be approved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Just giving one last chance to make sure there's no other public popping up. I don't see any. So it's moved and seconded. Any discussion at this table? Okay, I'm happy to call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And I'll move that Uplands Siting and Design Permit ADP 00196 for a new single-family dwelling at 2764 Dorset Road be approved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That concludes that. Good luck with your project, Mr. Brewster.
Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, take care. We move then to section 8.2, which is the zoning amendment for real estate offices. This is also available for public input. If anybody's wanting to speak to it, we will take questions and then we'll take public input and then we'll come back to this table. Mr. Green, are you providing a brief introduction?
Thank you, Your Worship. This report just responds to Council's direction from October the 6th, where Council directed staff to bring back the bylaws for consideration of readings, and also giving notice of first reading of the zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw number 4932, which was staff undertook in terms of giving notice to affected property owners and tenants, as well as putting an advert in the newspaper on 2 occasions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members of council to staff? Just appreciate the work that's gone in and the notification. I'm going to just ask them that we do somebody read aloud the. Oh, sorry, I did ask if anybody from the public wishes to speak. So I've had no questions. Is there any members of the public who wish to address council? I've asked, I don't see any hands raised, but I'll give it another moment here. If you're on the Zoom app, you can hit the raise hand toggle within the Zoom workplace to speak to council. I see nobody in the room
So I'll
or
move-
online, so please go ahead.
I'll move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4932, 2025 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Braithwaite.
I'd just like to thank staff for the work that has gone into preparing this bylaw. I was really pleased to bring it forward, and I'm pleased to support it. It's similar to the financial institution bylaw already in place. This new regulation helps us guide the types of uses in our commercial core in a thoughtful way. Our village area is a key part of Oak Bay's character, and maintaining a vibrant, people-oriented retail environment is essential for its long-term health. By ensuring that ground floor spaces remain active and welcoming, we help support small businesses, encourage walkability, and keep the village lively for residents and visitors. I appreciate staff's efforts to bring forward a balanced approach that supports both good planning and thriving retail streetscapes, and I know that we'll be looking at this, that this is just an interim measure until we have a look at the village area planning process, where we're going to look at this more comprehensively. But thanks again to staff. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? And for third reading?
I'll move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4932, 2025 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
And I'll move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4932, 2025 be adopted.
Moved and seconded, thank you. We don't usually debate on adoption, but just because we don't usually do all four readings in one sitting either, but we are able to in this case. Just want to give a chance to anybody else before I call the question. Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? That carries. Moving then to item 8.3, again, open for public input. We have our 2026 solid waste fee bylaw and 2026 preliminary solid waste disposal budget, but 8.3, 8.4, and 8.5 are all essentially linked, so I think there's the chance we're just going to introduce all three of them, and I'll take questions on all three, and then we'll move procedurally through those three items. And certainly, if anybody online wishes to speak on any of those three items, you can raise your hand now, and I will get to you when we get to the public input portion. Welcome, Ms. LaChance.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening again. As you mentioned, I will provide some general introductory comments on all three reports. I can take questions either individually on those as we move through and address the recommendations from staff, or we can wait and ask all questions at the same time. I'm pleased to present the annual utility rate bylaws for Council's consideration and approval. Council's receiving these bylaws now pursuant to legislation so that new rates may come into effect January 1st. They'd come into effect for the new year and be applied to recover costs throughout 2026. In all three cases, if approved, the bylaws advance to final readings and approvals at the next regular council. The budgets will form part of the district-wide financial plan to be considered by council early in 2026. All budgets have been prepared based on the September 2026 council-approved financial planning guidelines, reflecting those financial management strategies and assumptions as reported in that report. They also reflect a continued commitment to funding infrastructure replacement and maintenance with the aim of minimizing cost of service escalation over time. There have been no changes in rate-setting methodology, and there are no staff-recommended budget requests, only changes for inflation adjusting costs and the infrastructure funding lifts. To manage budgeted costs, staff continue to compare the budget against the last 3 years of experience and adjust budgets to reflect what is considered necessary to deliver services at current levels. With introductory comments complete, at your direction, Your Worship, I could move into each individual report or take questions.
Given this a very comprehensive report for each of these, we all had a chance to read it, I think I'll just go to questions. And if there's anything that you want to fill out in more detail based on the questions, feel free to do so. I'm going to turn to members of council then, and are there questions for Ms. LaChance on any of the items here, please go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks so much, and thanks for the really, as the Mayor said, comprehensive reports, Ms. LaChance, and through you, Mayor. I noticed that the organics disposal is rising by nearly 15%. And so could you explain the primary drivers and whether any efficiencies or alternative arrangements are going to be considered for that?
Ms. LaChance?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Your Worship. The existing organics collection is under contract, and contained within that contract are fuel-based escalation, inflation escalation indexes. So those play a factor in that increase year over year being higher than an inflationary amount. And as that agreement is subject to procurement, we are able to go back out to market and ensure best pricing, best value, and so that is action staff will take.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then as far as the equipment pool charges go, there's an 8% increase in equipment pool charges, and that seems kind of high as well. Could you explain what's driving that inflation and whether we expect this pressure to ease in 2027 or continue in 2027?
Ms. LaChance, crystal ball time.
Yes, thank you. Through Your Worship, the 8% is down off of a previous year 10% increase. There were 2 years of 10% increases. We are anticipating that the rate of increase will decrease. There's also been preliminary assessments done on the equipment pool, equipment fleet, also pricing that's available to us, and approaches to O&M, operation and maintenance. And so I'm going to ask my colleague to also jump in terms of the state and his crystal ball. But we definitely are doing what we can to reduce those costs once those transfers are at the appropriate level.
Thank you very much, Ms. LaChance. Welcome back, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And yes, to tack on to that excellent explanation from my colleague, Ms. LaChance, I would just like to add that the supply chain uncertainty that happened following on the COVID pandemic did have a very real impact on the purchase price of vehicles and also on replacement parts for vehicles. So we did see that the shop costs went very high. When we looked at the forecast for the replacement price of the vehicles, we felt that the equipment pool needed a little bit of boosting. As Ms. LaChance noted, we are starting to kind of crest that hill. And I also just wanted to mention that there's lots of approaches that we're looking into, including alternative methods of procuring replacement vehicles. We're taking calls with fleet management companies. You know, we are proactively doing the best that we can to try and stay on top of the equipment pool charges.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. Anything else, Councillor Braithwaite?
Yeah. Going on to the water, do we know how Oak Bay's water rates compare to the other CRD municipalities for 2026, or is everybody on the same rate?
Ms. LaChance?
Through Your Worship, just a point of maybe a clarification. So are you wondering if the CRD rate charged to the district is the same that other municipalities will receive? That's correct. It's a wholesale rate charged to all municipalities.
Thank you. And then my last question would be, I guess, around the sewer charges. And it's around affordability measures. So for residents with lower income or fixed incomes, is there any mechanism in place or planned similar to property tax deferment to mitigate utility cost increases? And I know we've talked about this a lot, and I'm just going to throw that question out there again.
Ms. LaChance?
Yes, thank you. Both the CRD, so both the municipal portion of the sewer budget as well as the regional portion are charged by way of fees. The fee methodology is set by council. It's intended from a math perspective to do a full cost recovery. Once those fees are charged, if they go unpaid, they will result in a transfer to taxes, which then would be subject to the deferral program available under the provincial program. And yes, I do recall talking about this last year. I hope that answer is better this year.
Thank you very much. Sometimes it's worth just asking those questions again so the public knows, because I think it's not always that transparent about that piece. Go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Yes, I do have a question, and this one relates to the setting the water rates. And it's about the split between the fixed daily charge and the consumption charge, which I see in the report. Has not actually, it looks like, at least from a council's perspective, that split hasn't been looked at for over 20 years. And I just wondered if Ms. LaChance can comment on how that particular split would, if she knows, how that would compare to what's going on in other jurisdictions. And I ask the question because when I think about affordability, people can control their consumption, but clearly they can't control the fixed daily charge. So I just wanted to see if we were kind of operating on par with our colleagues around the CRD.
Ms. LaChance?
Yes, thank you through your worship. I'm sorry, I cannot comment on that. I haven't done that analysis recently, but that is an analysis that we can perform.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any, and make a final call for anybody in the public who wishes to speak to council on any of 8.3, 8.4, or 8.5. This is your chance to do so. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to seeking motions. So I think I need somebody, again, they're bylaws, so we do need to be read aloud. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Worship. So I guess I would begin by saying, or moving the recommendation that the 2026 preliminary solid waste disposal budget be approved as presented and that the rate be set at $387.40 per collection unit.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Watson?
Yes, thank you. I will probably be supporting the motion, but I may have a motion arising afterwards, and it just with respect to actually the description of the service levels. And I do note that for in the service levels, we speak about the ability to get collection from home and also to use the services of our yard. And those services are not available to people who don't drive. So there is some portion of our population who are actually not getting the same service level, but are being charged the same. And I think that that is something that we do need to address. Because you can't actually take recycling solid waste or garden waste to our dump unless you actually drive in, and we know that not all our residents drive. So they are disadvantaged with respect to this service and the rates that they're being charged. So I will support the motion because I know we need to move this forward, but I will be bringing a motion arising so that to address that particular issue for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I might just give it to staff as well, because I think these, having thought about it, and there may be some explanation that might help before motions come forward. Do you wish to add anything, Mr. Rennick?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick comments there. We do have the ability for residents with decals to be passengers. We also do have the ability for residents to go to the transfer station on bicycles. There are some residents who do take recyclable materials on bicycles. Given the footprint of the site at Elgin Road, the reason that people using the facility must arrive in vehicles is purely driven by safety concerns. It's a very narrow space and there's no room to put in a sidewalk. Certainly would not be my first choice of facility. As this council is well aware, I would rather provide those services somewhere else. Unfortunately, there is no somewhere else. So I just wanted to add those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick. Did I see a hand over here? No. So I'm ready to, so the motion is live on the floor. I'm ready to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Your Worship, I would further move that refuse collection and disposal bylaw number 4371, 2007, amendment bylaw number 4939, 2025 be read a first and second time.
Seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
I will further move, Your Worship, that refuse collection and disposal bylaw number 4371, 2007, amendment bylaw number 4939, 2025 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other, we don't usually debate on third reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That concludes 8.3. We move now to 8.4, the water utility rates bylaws. So same process as before. So one, that the preliminary water utility bid should be approved as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder for that?
So moved.
Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Your worship, I would move that water rate bylaw number 3370, 1981, amendment bylaw number 4941, 2025 be read a first and second time.
Thank you. I'll come back to the water rate setting. So moved and second, first and second time. Is there a seconder for that? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
I'll come back to your first one, your worship. I thought that was included in the first recommendation, but I can read it
think we need
separately.
to, I'll just do it separately, yeah.
Okay, then I would move that the consumption water rate be set at $4.57 per 100 cubic feet, and the fixed charge water rate be set at 92 cents per day.
Okay, moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Your worship, I would move that water rate bylaw number 3370, 1981, amendment bylaw number 4941, 2025 be read a third time.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Moving on to 8.5, the municipal and regional sewer rate bylaw and 26 sewer utility budget. Please go ahead.
Your worship, I would move that the 2026 preliminary sewer utility budget be approved as presented, and that the municipal sewer rate be set at $3.71 per unit of water, and the regional sewer rate be set at $8.10 per unit of water.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Your worship, I would move that sewer use charge bylaw number 4392, 2008, amendment bylaw number 4940, 2025 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Worship, I would move that sewer use charge bylaw number 4392, 2008, amendment bylaw number 4940, 2025 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. What good timing. My pen just ran out. Moving to, that concludes the business. Thank you, Ms. LaChance, for your reports. Any new business? Any notices of motion? And any, oh, go ahead.
I have a couple of motions arising, actually, out of the items that we
Sure.
just looked at.
We'll go back to those, sure.
Yeah, thank you. My first motion is just to ask council to request from staff sometime over the next year, just to report back on the cost distribution allocation for the water charges between fixed and the consumption charge, to see where to see how we compare to other jurisdictions in the CRD. So that we would know that in advance of next year's, discussion of that rate bylaw.
So, can I just make a suggestion? Can we treat that as a notice of motion and give a chance to go and just have a clarity of wording with staff to make sure that you're getting what you want in a way that is practical? Okay, so why don't we treat that as a notice of motion, read into the record tonight, and the final wording will come back as a written version, but, so that's one, and what's the second one?
And the second one may end up being a notice of motion too. It was going to be that staff report back to council on options for car-free hours at the municipal depot for those who do not use vehicles. I heard the safety concern around you can't be there with cars, but just for an option for some way to deliver that service during some car-free hours.
Sure, and I think, again, even more procedurally on this case, I think it makes sense to do it as a notice of motion because it doesn't directly arise out of the bylaws, but it makes sense. So, yeah, if we'll treat it as a notice of motion so it can come back in a timely fashion, and the final wording of that you can work on with myself and staff, and that'll come back. Anything else? Yes, a motion to adjourn is in order. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you, everybody. I had us finishing at 9:20. We're at 9:31. That's not too bad, so thank you.